This is the coolest looking hiking boot for this category, like the real hiking boots, the backpacking boots. But is it all style with zero substance? Did the Gorp Core trend and this post-COVID boom in hiking cause one of the industry leaders in Salomon to sell out and focus more on fashion first rather than function? That's what we're gonna try to figure out by running our tests and cutting this thing in half to really figure out, are these boots real hiking boots? Did Salomon sell out? Is this boot all style or is there some substance to it? And a lot like the other brands in this category, Salomon started in the ski industry because in 1947, George Salomon joins his father's shop in France that produced beveled ski edges. And George had a lot of interest in skiing as a leisure activity since so many villages nearby were installing ski lifts and starting to build kind of ski resorts, or at least early ski resorts. Then in 1955, George invents a ski binding toe piece that would replace a leather strap. In 1957, and with that success, Salomon started to expand and recruit. And by 1979, Salomon produced their first pair of ski boots, and Salomon continued to grow and diversify their product offering with the alpine leisure activities until 1992, when their first range of hiking boots was first introduced. Then in 1997, Adidas bought Salomon and started expanding their footwear offering even more. Then in 2005, Amir Sports, the same owners of Arc'teryx, Atomic, and Wilson, they buy Salomon from Adidas and move the operations to the United States, actually here in Utah, in Ogden, just a little bit north of us. And then since 2005, Salomon has continued to make shoes geared towards outdoor enthusiasts, trail runners, hikers, skiers, snowboarders, and anything outdoors. And recently become super trendy, like I mentioned in the intro, the Gorp Core, this tech wear trend where everyone's just wearing like ultra tech stuff, super expensive stuff, and just wearing it around the city, but it looks so cool. Like, I get it, it's cool. And because of that Gorp Core trend, people started buying Salomons not just for hiking and all the other activities, but they actually started wearing them for fashion. And so that's where some of my concern with this is Salomon just turning into a fashion brand at this point, or are they still staying true to their ethics and their core values that built the brand? So what is this boot? Well, the brand is Salomon. The style is the Quest 4 Gore-Tex. They weigh 1 pound, 7 ounces. They retail for $230. They're made in Vietnam, and the way that they position this boot is designed for long expeditions and tough conditions. The Quest is grippy and supportive. We've updated the chassis to target sensitive articulations and wrap the foot in extra support, while also keeping your stride fluid. No matter how tired you are or how heavy your pack, the Quest 4 Gore-Tex ensures a stable yet smooth ride on any terrain. And if you want a pair of these, be sure to check them out. Be linked in my description, because on occasion it helps out the channel. I've spent more of my personal money on Factor meals probably than any other sponsor. Basically, Factor makes up the majority of my diet. Since we started working with Factor, they sent us the first box. I was like, oh, they're not the frozen, mushy, nasty meal deliveries. And you get them fresh, you throw them in the fridge, you heat them up real quick, 2 minutes in the microwave, and you're good to go. They have these nice cold pressed drinks, and you can tell this is good because look how the sediment has settled in there. Watch this. You know, if it settles like that it has some actual cold pressed juice in it. What is Factor? Well, Factor makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs create each meal using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best all day long. I get home from a long day of work. I don't want to cook. I don't want to spend at least $20 or $30 on a delivery meal. You just have this nice little package, perforate it, throw it in the microwave. 2 minutes later, you got a nice, hot, delicious meal. And they actually are good. They allow you to change the frequency of your orders. You can pause for a week if you go on vacation. You can adjust the amount of meals you get per week. And you can choose from a menu of 35 different options, including Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, vegan or vegetables. And they, like I mentioned, they have a bunch of those add-ons. There's 60 add-ons every single week. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code Anvil50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month's order. That's code Anvil50 at factor75.com to get that 50% off your first box plus the 20% off your next month's order. So check them out below. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now start looking at the materials, starting with the upper, because there's a bunch of different materials on this upper, but there's 4 main ones. First, let's start with the leather, because it's what I love most. This is a nubuck leather, meaning it still has that grain portion in it that structures and gives that loose fibers all its strength, but it's been sanded slightly, because I think mostly because nubuck is a really popular leather for hiking boots and like hunting boots and work boots. And so it's just a traditional way to do it, but also sanding that top layer down just a little bit removes a lot of the flaws and the scars that might cause little unsightly blemishes that people that sometimes forget that leather comes from the skin of a cow. They forget that, and some people don't like having little scars and scratches on it, and sometimes these big brands want really clean and really consistent leather, and so nubuck is oftentimes the leather of choice. How thick is it? About 1.5 millimeters thick. So around sneaker thickness, work boot thickness is anywhere from 2 to 3 millimeters. But because this has so many mixed materials, it's, I'm not like too concerned about it, to be honest. And they've used the nubuck in your high wear spots, like around here, the toe bumper, up here at the collar, and all the spots that you need a lot of support and strength, like where the eyelets are connected to the boot, it's all that nubuck leather. That's really the only leather in this boot, because if you look at the panels, like right here at the tongue, it's a little gusseted area, and if you look right here, the suede looking leather behind the nubuck, it looks like leather, but we put the little lighter to it, the flame test, and it just melted, and leather doesn't melt. And so clearly those are fake leathers or synthetic leathers. So why would you use fake leather on a $230 boot? This is Salomon, this is one of their flagship models, ultra high quality, but then they sneak in a couple panels of that fake leather in some of the more integral parts of the design and where you're gonna see some of the most wear. So why would they use fake leather? Well, it's cheaper, it's lighter, it's more flexible, but at the same time, it's less durable and won't last as long. And I personally don't see any advantages in these two particular spots that fake leather is going to give you over real leather. It looks like it's more about cost savings or getting a certain aesthetic, which is starting to put that form above the function, even right off the bat looking at the materials. But the second material we're looking at is the two textiles that they use in this. Here at the tongue, this canvas, and then this unique material that backs all the little eyelets and the nubuck leather. And I have no idea what they are because Salomon's website has almost no information on the materials in this boot. It's crazy to me that brands like this that are known for outdoor, it's tech, like it's really tech heavy, it's supposed to be all about the performance, and they don't even tell people what they're buying. So it's always hard to tell, is it well-intentioned ignorance or is it bad-intentioned ignorance? But either way, we burned them to see what kind of material it's made out of, and it smelled really chemically, so it's probably either polyester or nylon. The benefits of that is it's lighter, it's more flexible than leather, it's more durable than fake leather, and I just like the look of this specific material. It is really, really pretty, like really close on the macro lens. It's a really unique, I think it's a canvas weave. It just has a different warp and weft thread color. And the two thicknesses are the thinner canvas around the tongue is 0.4 millimeters. This thicker, more hardy canvas is around 0.8 millimeters. I like seeing that. It does add some flexibility. I think it's a pretty hardy material, so no complaints really there. The third material is just these rubber bumpers. You see this a lot in like Keens, especially this toe reminds me of Keen. And I love that because as you're dragging your toes and you're kneeling and doing whatever, you have to wear through a good amount of rubber, which is always going to be a slightly more abrasion resistant and more like impact resistant than even like a leather toe bumper would be. So I like those, no big deal there. And then the fourth is this black material, which was really interesting because I just thought this was like a rubber layer that was added, that was part of like the heel and the toe. And then I was like, well, maybe it's fake leather, like with a plastic or rubber layer on top. But we cut it and burned it, and we realized it is real leather underneath that rubbery top coat. And 9 times out of 10, I hate when they put top coats on leathers because it just makes it look ugly, especially white leather. We've talked about 1,000 times with Nike. It bubbles up, it separates. But this is different. This is more like that Finnish or Swedish military boot we did with the Iron Snell, where it was intentionally plastic or rubber coated leather, which added some durability, some water protection. And I think that's more of what this is. Because just from like the amount that we bent it and tested it and was ripping it and doing all the different things, it's really well adhered. And I think part of that is because they didn't use a full grain leather. They didn't use any leather that had the grain, and they used a suede, which is an inferior cut of the leather. It's less strong, but it's more malleable. But more importantly, for a rubber coating on top, it bonds really, really well to suede because it's almost like, if you've ever done any woodworking or leather working or basically anything you glue together, a lot of times you have to rough up the materials so that you have more surface area for that glue to actually grip and grab onto as it glues. Similar concept with this rubber top coat. And so it's suede, it's cheaper, but it makes sense. And it's well backed, it's sewn on well. You got all these like extra redundant things, even with this little like lace hole that adds a little bit of protection. So overall, the upper materials, I mostly like them. I just can't believe they put fake leather in 2 distinct spots that are pretty integral to the durability of the boot when they easily could have just done leather or even just more canvas. But one part that we didn't really explain that does kind of creep up to the upper is the ADV C4D, Advanced C4D chassis. And so what is this, or what do they claim it is? Well, it's supposed to give you enhanced support, stability, and smoothness for hiking, but it doesn't, once again, they don't even say what it is. So what is it? Well, it seems like it's a harder plastic or TPU cage that wraps around the heel, potentially stabilizing that foam so it doesn't over compress and roll your ankle, and around the side here, and then it creeps up on the lateral side of the boot, which, you know, does it really stabilize that much? Probably not. And so is that like marketing jargon BS? We've seen this used to pretty decent effect in a few other boots, so I don't think it's all BS. It feels a little bit that way, but we'll really see when we get it cut in half and see how it's structured on the inside. Does it wrap underneath? Does it structure it in a different way that we can't see from the outside? That's what we'll figure out when we get it cut in half. And obviously this is a classic Gore-Tex lined boot where you have that membrane between the lining, then you have the membrane, and then you have the outer part of the boot. And so a lot of times these boots are perfectly waterproof, and this one passed with flying colors. Really no complaints anywhere. Gore-Tex is kind of the industry standard for top quality waterproof linings. And even though there's no extra protection of the heel to prevent that heel slip wearing through that Gore-Tex lining, it's still pretty standard for this price range of hiking and backpacking boots. What about the insole? If I pull this out, it is removable, kind of. Like, what I mean is it's not glued down in any way. It's made by Ortholite. Ortholite is one of the industry leaders when it comes to quality foam, especially for open cell foam. Because open cell foam, it squishes faster, it gives you more of that contoured feel, but it does bottom out faster, and there's pros and cons associated with it. With each, it's lighter, it's more breathable, but it's maybe not as durable. And we need to do an open cell versus closed cell foam video at some point. But the nice thing is it's got some closed cell foam on the heel area too that kind of wraps up around your heel. It's, you know, it's still just a foam insole. There's nothing really crazy about it. You know, you do have some holes for ventilation in the toe area, but just a classic Ortholite insole. And we ran the ball drop test on it. It bounced up 17 inches, which is 14th overall. And I think that was backed with the midsole, because that midsole is a pretty soft midsole. It's a 30 Shore A, and it seems to be just another typical boot in this price range where you've got that harder rubber outsole. The foam midsole is fairly soft and squishy, but this does have that little cage around it. But speaking of this outsole, so this is the Salomon branded rubber lugged outsole. There's name brand outsoles like Vibram, like Meramec, some of these other brands, and then there's brands that make their own outsole. And then to me, depending on how good the brand is, almost dictates how good their own self-branded rubber is. You know, if you buy like self-branded rubber from an Amazon hiking boot, it's gonna be garbage. Salomon, it seems like it's just as good, if not a little bit more grippy than Vibram, because the lugs are pretty deep at 5 millimeters. It's surprisingly hard at 80 Shore A, which is like 10 Shore A harder than even like the work boot rubbers, but it has that really grippy, soft feel. I like the look of it, like the aggressiveness of the lugs, a little saw teeth in there, matched the saw teeth in the upper. We ran the bar drop test, bounced up 5.5 inches. So not great on the bar drop test, but that might be because of the extra hard foam. But at the end of the day, it's garage science. We're just trying to get some general information from these tests. And the last thing to talk about is the construction. It's just an injection molded construction, exactly how the vast majority, if not all the boots in this category are going to be made, because instead of gluing it together, when you injection mold it, it's got a big metal mold, the upper gets set in it, and then liquid hot, uncured foam gets pumped into it. It fills with air, or it gets air infused into it, and then it binds to every square inch it touches. Rather than just being glued, the actual material binds to everything underneath. And so it's really strong, it's really squishy, and that's why basically every hiking boot is moved towards this. So now let's cut them in half and really see if Salomon's sold out or if they're still an industry leader for outdoor gear. All right, we've got them cut in half, and If you don't mind just pushing that little subscribe button if you haven't already. It's just one free little click that allows us to afford to buy hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of boots every single month just to destroy, to show you what you're spending your hard-earned money on, what brands is BS and what's not, what you can trust, what you should avoid. The only way we do it is with your guys' support, with the subscribing, our handmade leather goods, our collaborations, all that stuff. So let's see what's inside. So I was wrong. This 4D chassis actually is more than just a little marketing gimmick. It goes all the way underneath the sole, and you can even see, I just missed it when we first did it. You can see that almost shank-like structure that supports the boot. It gives it that rigidity that you want in this style of boot, especially if you're backpacking, you have a lot of weight on your back. Every time you step and you're trying to support yourself with your foot muscles or tendons and like your calf muscles, it can wear you out in a hurry. But when you have a really rigid sole construction, it almost springboards you forward. So that's why on all these shoes that we're cutting apart, you see some sort of almost full-length structure on the inside. And fortunately, this is no different because you can see how far that goes up, and it does add some rigidity because right where that stops is where the boot wants to bend, right at that toe flex area where it should bend. Then everything else is really, really structured. Even just this half boot, you can see how structured it is. So that works. That makes me feel a lot better. I was getting nervous that it was just all just a gimmicky boot. But everything else seems to be pretty standard. You know, you've got that soft foam midsole. It's about the same thickness as the lows that we just reviewed. We'll put the actual measurements here. And it's just worth noting these rubber toe guards are not a true double layer over leather. That leather stops where the toe guard begins, same with the heel. But at the end of the day, it's a more affordable, within reason, hiking boot that's supposed to be lightweight. And so some of that's forgivable. So are these boots still real hiking boots? To me, they are. They're pretty awesome on the trail. I liked hiking in them, and I like the feel of them. I like the look of them. And they still clearly are intention. They're built with the intention of being hiked. But did Salomon sell out? Well, there's some weird material choices in here, like the fake leathers, and then not telling the consumers the materials that they're using. You know, it shades towards some of that fast fashion and some of that selling out, but I don't think it's a complete sellout situation. Maybe 10%, because you know I just found another fake leather panel right there. But for 90% of this boot, it is still clearly that Salomon quality, that Salomon feel, and these little gimmicky things seem to actually work, at least to some degree. So is this boot all style or is it all substance? It's both, because first of all, they look so good, and they're probably my favorite looking boots in this whole series. But are they worth the price? Well, based off the one boot that we've cut apart in this series, this is kind of the hard part of this, but also the fun of this kind of series is we're learning along with you guys as we go along. So some of the opinions change, some of the rankings change, and the information base changes as we cut more and more apart. So are they worth it? I think they are. I like them. I think that those few little differences aren't worth throwing the whole concept of the boot away and going with a different brand if you like this. And so now that we have two boots, we can start ranking them on our board. So ranking them on the main board, the hiking boot board, best hiking boot based off of quality materials and how they were used. So I'm gonna go with Loa, Salomon, and it's tough because both have their little flaws that you could point to put one over the other. You know, the Loas have so many potential fail points in the upper where it's all sewn together, whereas this one has your fake leather and some of the other things that we've talked about. So you could swap them either way. But for my personal ranking that includes my personal fit, the feel underneath my foot, the aesthetic that I'm going for, and the quality, I put Salomon above Loa. So that's how I'd rank them, and let me know what else you guys want us to test in this series. What other important components and parts to these boots are we missing? Let us know. And next up is the Los Sportivas. So thank you guys for watching this and all the support you guys give with our handmade leather goods we make right here in the shop, our collaborations, and just watching the channel so that we can afford to do this. So thank you guys. See ya. You look so handsome. Yeah.
He's like him, like
Yeah. Real